So today we're going to take a look at Nuxt.js. And this is a framework for Vue. And in simple terms, it helps you kind of organize your app into pages. I mean, basically, if you want to make a website with Vue, this is the best way to do it, I'd say. And you can either do it as a statically generated site, or you can actually run a server under the hood. And that decision's really up to you for whatever your use case is. The idea I have for this video is, and I don't know if I'm going to go all the way with it. I'm just kind of going to use this to play around with. But so this site was built in PHP, which is my old stack, PHP and MySQL, and really desperately need to move away from that. Not necessarily because there's anything wrong with it, but I don't work in PHP as much anymore, and I'd love to do future upgrades to the site. There really isn't much to the site anymore these days, and if I want to do more updates, I'd rather do it in the stack that I'm working in. And there's just a lot more cool stuff you can do. And there's just a bunch more cool stuff you can do if you switch over to JavaScript. So so as I said, I don't know if we're going to do this whole site, which again, it's only like 3 pages, I think, or maybe 2. But we'll just use it as a way to kind of build something into Nuxt. All right, so let's get started. For here, I've got the documentation for Nuxt, and we're going to be using Nuxt 2. Nuxt 3 is on its way, but not it's still a release candidate right now. So let's click Get Started. And scroll down. We're going to use NPM. You could use NPX as well, but we're going to stay in the NPM ecosystem, for lack of better words. So let's do this. I'll pull up our terminal here. Let's go ahead and type this command out. Now this last part's gonna be our name. I'm just gonna call it the website itself. And just like in the last Vue video, this is gonna create a Nuxt application in a folder called thedigitalcraft.com. And this should walk through some options, again, just like when we installed the Vue app in the last video. And we'll walk through that. I may skip ahead and pass this installing of modules. Okay, so here is the generator. We're just going to keep that as the project name. We're going to do JavaScript, switch to NPM, and I don't know if I'm going to use any of these. If I were to, it'd probably be Bootstrap Vue. So let's just go ahead and install that, and if we use it, we use it. If we don't, we don't. Let's go ahead and let's do Axios. So hit space, and we're not doing a linter now. No testing framework. We will just keep this as universal, and for now we'll do server. One of my wishes with redoing the Digital Craft website is to just make it static, and much of that is really just, you can do the static front end and still have a dynamic site. I don't see the Digital Craft growing, or the website anyways, at this moment growing into anything that requires the server portion of this. I feel like most of what we can do, even the dynamic content, can just be sucked up into the front end. But for now, we'll stick with server, and then we'll switch to static later, so I can show you how to build a static site. Might run into some issues with some of this, I'm not sure yet. All right, let's cd into that directory. And when doing the minimal prep for this that I did, I realized that I need to make sure that I have a earlier version of Node installed. So I went with 14, and I think that's fine. So I'm just going to ensure that I have that. Use 14. Okay, now Let's do npm run dev, and this will do something very similar to what happened in the Vue video. And again, if you get some errors here while this client and server are building, check. It's a good chance that you're using the wrong version of Node. I am getting these errors because I added Bootstrap Vue, I bet. So we'll address those later if we need to. Okay, so go over to the browser. Should be 3000, but if yours says anything different in the terminal, go ahead and put the appropriate one in there. Okay, so there you go. We've got a boilerplate Nuxt app running, and okay, so I have another terminal actually off to the side here, and I'm going to swap these. Get a clear terminal. You'll see the other one here in another view. Let's make sure. Okay, so I'm in that directory here, and I'm going to open code, and we're going to switch over to this view. So you can see there's our other terminal running now. So let's take a peek at what is involved here. Similar concepts to a regular Vue app. We have a components directory. We introduced this pages directory, which pages are essentially a component, but they're special in Nuxt. They have special properties and some other stuff, and we'll get into that. But a page looks pretty similar to what we saw in the other video there. So this is just loading the tutorial component, which is in here. And this component looks similar to, so template and the script. And if we want to put some style in, we can, just like we do in regular Vue, which this is. I'll stop reiterating that. Let's follow the instructions here. And this here. So let's just go ahead and go to the pages. And let's swap this out with just a div. Here, we'll just steal that. I may disable Copilot for this video. Kind of drives me nuts a little bit. All right, so we've got an empty page here. Let's go ahead and let's remove both of these components. This one's actually not even used in this app as far as I can tell. So delete those. We don't need those anymore. Okay. So we've got pages, components, static. This is where you can put any assets that don't need compiled. For assets that need compiled, things like SAS and things like that, or SCSS, whatever. There's an assets folder we can add for that. And then the store here, this is for Vuex. And we might get into that on this video, I'm not sure. But let's go back over to the documentation here and let's talk about a few concepts that are probably going to be important. One of the neat things with these pages here is that there's an automatic routing that happens with Nuxt. And a lot of times, I mean, depending on how simple your Nuxt app is going to be, you can get away with rolling with these automatic routes. But if you have to do anything else more advanced, there's options for that. But we're probably going to stick to automatic routes in this video, since there isn't really, I mean, if we look at the site, there's the home page, so that's one page, training, and that's just one page. If we go back, I think I have a live events page, which I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about because I got too busy to do live events. And I apologize for anybody who's filled this out, as one of our viewers noted in the last video, or I mentioned he had sent me an email and I didn't get it. This is sitting in a MySQL database that I totally forgot about, and maybe we'll address that later in this video. I might get rid of this page in general, but I would actually like to get some comments and feedback in another form somewhere else on the site, and maybe do it in a way that I'm actually going to be notified and stay on top of any submissions. So, all right, back to here. So again, okay, so if we started added pages here, like if I added about.vue, and as long as I've got this, the basic setup of a component in there, it should automatically add a new page. Let's go ahead and let's just try that out. About.vue, go ahead and paste, change this to about page. I may change this naming convention a bit, but I'm just following what they already had. There. Okay, so if we go back to the app here, we should, in theory, be able to add /about. There you go. Now let's actually add something so it loaded and didn't give an error, so that's good, but let's just put some text in here. Save that, and should hot reload. Yep, about. Home page. So if I take this slash out, home page, cool. So, pretty cool. You've got pages set up and routing already. That's pretty neat. Let's pop back over to the documentation. I want to take a brief look at layouts. So this directory is not added by default. I think it used to be, but it is not anymore. And right now, I'm pretty sure this is what happens by default if you don't add this directory. But layouts allows you to kind of customize some of the fixed components on a page. Not only for the whole site, like globally, but you could also make multiple layouts, like maybe most of your pages are all the same, but there's a couple pages that follow a different format. Maybe they don't have the header or they don't have the footer. And so you can customize separate layouts and apply here in the settings of a page. You can tell it what layout to use. But by default, it will always go to either this, or if you add a layouts default, which we're going to do here, you can customize that kind of generic global default. So let's add a folder, layouts, and new file, default.vue. And let's go ahead and we'll just copy this, and I'll explain what's going on here. And I'm not sure what's going on with my validation or whatever plugin, but anyway, ignore that. So what's going on here is it's normal template tags, and then this Nuxt here, this is what loads everything else. So basically this is the content of the page. So we could add things outside of that. Let's go ahead and do a div. I wanted to say it's like, it's giving you some good hints, but I don't want to just always take their suggestions. All right, do a div, but we're now going to have to take this and toss it in that container because you can only have one root element. And let's do header and h1. And do footer. Okay, pop back over here. Okay, so we had an error that actually broke it, so we needed to refresh. All right, so we have our pieces and parts here. So if we actually go to about, we should get to keep our header and footer. Yep. All right. So we will probably break these into components later, and obviously we will spruce them up. And in fact, maybe let's try this. Let's do style. I'm not going to do too much style. in the beginning here, because at some point I want to install SCSS. Make sure that's running, because I hate regular CSS. I can't stand it anymore. But well, let's just say header. Actually, let's do scoped. And I don't think actually Bootstrap is running yet, because I think we need that compiler. So that's why this container is actually not doing anything. But for now, we're going to reference container. And we're going to do display flex and direction column. Thank you, Copilot. And let's, all right, we're going to do just some simple moving around of some things here just for my sanity. So style. The reason I'm doing this in another tag is I don't want this scoped. And if you remember from the previous video, scoped is limited to the elements in this particular template. And so that's a way you could, like, I can apply this to the container tag here, but if we reuse container tags, or classes throughout the app, these rules will not apply to those because they're scoped only to containers within this template. However, this here, I want to go globally. And this may not be the best place to put it right now, but just for now, I'm going to do it here. So let's go ahead and just make everything 100% here that needs to be. If we look up here if we open up everything in the inspector, we have the HTML body, and then you have this Nuxt div and layout div. So we need to hit all of these. So HTML body under Nuxt. Oh, I also want to add under layout. And here for container, we will do 100. Let's see if that works. Oh, we also need to, I'm going to do justify content space between. Right. And then let's open up this here. Okay, so we have a container inside of a container here. Let's make a div. For now, we'll just call it main. Actually, it's not a div. And so we can target that easily. I may rethink that later. So let's do main. X. Grow. There we go. That ought to do us for now. Maybe add some color. Sure, let's just take that suggestion. Let's do footer as well. Let's see if that does anything. Here we go. And actually it does look like it's applying Bootstrap, maybe. Container. Oh, okay, it is. This I've got this probably zoomed in. Yeah, I've got this zoomed in a bit, so I didn't notice that until I saw these edges here. So we'll just run with this. This is kind of uggo for now, and maybe we'll add the same padding here just to keep things consistent. All right. Cool. Lastly, let's go ahead and make a navigation. Let's see. Let's talk about this. We'll take their suggestion. So this is this has got a built-in component with Nuxt, which is a bunch of. We will probably hit on a few of them. This allows us to address the router that's built into Nuxt, and pretty much just renders a an A tag, I believe. So let's go ahead and just save this and we'll take a look at the inspector. So inspect and open up the header, nav. Yep, so just an A tag. It's a clean way to do it. I can't think off the top of my head of all the benefits to doing it this way, but there are benefits. And there are ways to, I believe, modify the markup a little bit by passing parameters to the component. Okay, so we should be able to click on home, go back to the home page, and about, and go to about. This is uggo, I know. And let's actually just, for now, remove the unordered list. Just maybe try and do some side-by-side pipes. There we go. So we'll tidy this up later. But I mean, pretty cool, right? I mean, we've got a website up with a layout and routing all set up. Very minimal effort. I feel like I spent more time on the style, than setting up most of this. But all right. So we've got that. Let's take a quick look before we move on to other stuff. I'm not sure how much of this we will cover. I want to go up here and look at the concept of views. So now that we've talked about these, the layouts, the pages, components, we can now see kind of how each view is put together. So when you switch a route, or when you land on the root or the index, whatever, you've got the HTML file, which is generated by, there are pieces of that are generated, I think, in combination with some of the layout component setup, but also this Nuxt config is how you can insert some things in there. Then the layout loads, which we are seeing now. And then the page loads, which is at this level, the Nuxt level. And then from there, within our page, you can actually put child pages in there. There you go. We have a Nuxt app up and running. We've got some routing and a basic template. All right, before I wrap up this video, which I do think I'm going to cut this up into multiple videos, at least one more, but we'll see. Again, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. I don't want to end this video without giving you something tangible. So we're going to take a look at building a static website. Just, looking back at when I started this channel, I started it when I started learning how to make dynamic websites running server-side technology like PHP and such. And that opened up a whole new world for me, and I fell in love very quickly with the ability to use things like CMSs and just be able to do all the things you can do with all that backend technology. And I think at the time I could have never really saw the day when I would be making static HTML sites again. And to be fair, I'm not. But, in the last, 5+ years in my career, I've, discovered the static site generators like Hugo is one that I've used quite a bit in the past. But, and I've realized that there are many times when a full-blown CMS is just not a good option, especially if you're working with clients. If you're selling a small website, and it's one that does not need to have a lot of bells and whistles or be updated very often. It just needs to exist, a couple of pages. No need to dive into something like WordPress, because even if you obviously, if you give the client access to it, that opens up a whole buffet of problems that can arise from clients tinkering with the site. But even more so, even if you don't do that and you just kind of let it sit, you still have to maintain that thing because WordPress gets out of date and vulnerabilities happen and so on and so forth. So for quick websites, either for yourself or for a client, I recommend looking at static generation, because it's not the same as it used to be, where you were literally handwriting HTML. You get a lot of the tools, the back-end tools that you had with like PHP, but you're just doing that locally on your machine or on a server, but you're building it out into static HTML, which in many ways is a lot safer. You can secure, it's just HTML, so in most cases, you can just take all the server-side stuff out of what's publicly accessible in the browser, and you're literally just giving them access to HTML. And it takes away a lot of the headache and problems with working with things like WordPress and similar, and an even bigger node ecosystems. Anyway, that was a tangent. So really quick, let's look at, let's pop back over to our other view here. So we have the Nuxt config open here, and I'm just going to add a target property and set it to static. Save that, and so what we're going to do here is npm run build, and there's another command we'll run right after this, which actually, to be honest, at the top of my head, I can't remember if I even need to run build or if the other command will actually do it for us. But just because I don't know, okay, yeah, that's right, we do need to do it. So the next thing we do, you could run Nuxt generate if you have that installed. I don't remember if I have that installed globally. So we'll just do npm run generate, which actually I think does just run that, so maybe we didn't need to do that. So what this will do is it should give us, yep, there you go. It'll give us a dist folder, and that should be full of some HTML. So we can do here, and if anybody knows in the comments, I'm not totally sure. I know that there's a live server built into VS Code, but I don't know how to get it out of the root directory. So because of the way paths are set up in that dist folder or with the build, it won't work running out of the root out of the box. So I'm going to cd into dist and open a new code window. And so now we are just within that folder, and we're going to do a live server, Command Shift P, live, and then, all right, so we got a live server running. Here's our home page. If we click on about, it is there. Home, about, boom. So if you take this and upload it to a web server, you should have a website, albeit not a very exciting one. And hopefully we'll get to that in the next video. Thank you.